Hey everyone, this is Ken from Ken's Corner, and I'm back again with a fan panel. And I have a new participant on board. He is actually my co-host for Whistle Radio FM 102.9. Let's welcome Joe. How are you doing today, Joe? Are
Great,
you there?
Ken. Thanks for having me on, boys. Pleasure.
Top of the morning to you.
How are you guys?
And our usual
Bright and sunny day.
suspects.
It's beautiful.
Yes, it is. Our usual suspects, JT and Gord. Maybe George is a little hungover for us. He's got a playoff hangover, maybe out there in Calgary. A little too early for him. But we're going to fly into our questions here today, boys. Are you ready?
Go.
Yeah, go on.
All
What are
right.
we talking about?
First thing we're going to talk about today, boys, and we'll go around and get an idea. We haven't still hired a general manager here in Toronto. So what is your wish list? Let's start with Joe over here. Let's put the new guy in the hot seat. Joe, what are you thinking?
Well, I think all rumors and all signs point to Brad Treliving from Calgary. That's the name that seems to be surfacing the most. Doug Wilson also on St. Louis, but there's been no indication there's been any contact made from the organization to him. So he'd be a great candidate as well with his track record. So those are the two names that I've heard the most. I wouldn't be too upset if they picked either one of those guys.
Gord, do you have anyone to add to that list?
Well, the guy from Nashville, I think it's David Pohl, I think it is. He's seriously in contention in the beginning. Haven't heard a whole lot since, as he was replaced by Barry Trotz. Big surprise. But he's got the experience. They said he might retire, but when the Toronto job came up, he was quite enticed with the core group. And if he can do what he did in Nashville with the misfits he had in Nashville to Toronto, I mean, they had at one time a great goaltending core. And if he can make magic happen here, he'd be a great one. I think Trelevin might be the front runner overall. There's been a few other names thrown around, but nothing. I don't think anything is really going to stick. I think it's probably Trelevin's job to lose, honestly.
JT, do you have anyone else of or an opinion on Treliving?
I like Treliving. He's historically shown that he doesn't mind heavy hockey when he takes his drafts. So I'm pretty sure he was responsible for Bennett and I think Tkachuk even. Those are his guys. So he's got the history on that. And I think like, a lot of people talk about Pridham, but I don't know if he has the experience to come into something right now. We've had, I think Dubas was awesome. I really had no issues with Dubas. I'm bummed that he felt he needed to leave. I think there's a lot of factors to that, more than what they're saying about contract numbers and whatnot. But yeah, so Treliving would probably be my number one choice for that to slide into that, and I think he's more of the shoe in anyway. So just let it go, get someone with experience and someone who knows how to build a heavy hockey team.
Yeah, actually, I've spoken about Treliving quite often on the radio, and he has built tenacious teams before, and I think that's what we need to swing towards for sure. So I'm in agreement with the panel myself. Now let's move on. Let's have your opinions on Kyle Dubas's leaving the Toronto and the fact that he is actually speaking to Pittsburgh. Joe, do you have any opinions on that?
Well, JT, you won't be happy with me. I'm quite happy to see Dubas go. When you saw the locker cleanout day when all the Leafs spoke on that Monday after they were eliminated, you know, that anger and that passion's missing. There's some culture shift that needs to be done from the top down in that organization. I think Dubas did some good things. I think he did some not so good things. But at the end of the day, if you don't produce a winner, and he didn't, someone should pay the price. And I think he realized a little too late that he needed a heavy hockey team, and skilled small players just wouldn't cut it. And when I saw the lack of anger and just refusal to accept the loss, from every player. It was all the same messaging. Oh, we want to get back next year. We won one round, but want to get back with the same guys next year. No, the same guys don't work. So I, unlike you, think that Dubas, he had his chance to do things. He didn't produce a winner. He hasn't won anything. So time to make a shift. So Pittsburgh, he's got a tough team to try to manage with Malkin, Crosby, both at the end of their careers there. Yeah, send Sidney back over to Toronto. See what happens. I'd be happy with that.
Yeah, JT, I see you. He spoke directly to you. So, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think Kyle came in as an inexperienced GM. I think he cut his teeth in our organization, unfortunately. I do believe the first few years he had a pretty misguided approach of what works in the NHL. It worked beautifully in the OHL and have out in the AHL, but in this game it's a bit bigger, faster. It's more of a big boys club, and he learned that in the final year, and still had more pieces that he could have put in. That's why I'm kind of bummed that he left. I think he had finally flipped a switch, and he was going in the right direction, and he built a rapport with the players. I don't even know how many of our core four or these character guys that we picked up will want to return, depending on who we have as a GM now. We may lose a Matthews, a Marner. These guys are all Dubas's pets. So moving forward, I think we may see a whole revamp and shuffle. And now that we've got a new GM, I'm sorry, but maybe we'll get ourselves a new coach as well.
Yeah, something we'll be speaking about shortly. Gord, what is your opinion on Dubas if he does sign in Pittsburgh? Are you happy with that?
Well, I'm gonna go in between both JT and Joe here. I will say this. I wasn't surprised that he was leaving. Again, like Joe said, the accountability wasn't there. It's always next year, next year, next year. But I think what he did bring in this season showed that he realized again that he needed to go more top heavy with bringing in O'Reilly, with bringing in Shen, with bringing in Achari, making sure guys like that. But again, it's going to be even harder for him in Pittsburgh. He has, I think, 4 or 5 guys that are pretty much on the verge of saying, I'm hanging up my skates and see you later. Pittsburgh doesn't have a whole lot in their farm club based on what they've given away over the years. They have a few draft picks that might work, but again, it's gonna. I don't know. I think he was headed in the right direction. Dubas was, but again, he really didn't have a mentor, somebody that he could turn to that had been in the league as a GM, in the last 5 years that he could turn to and say, hey, like, I'm not sure perspective wise what this is going to do. I don't think he took a look at the overall aspect of it coming down to money as they tried to play it off as the contract. I think it was a lot more of the internal bickering going right up to the top of them saying, okay, yeah, we got past the first round. That's fantastic. But the overall goal here is to bring a cup to Toronto, not to just get by Tampa Bay and then have Florida manhandle us all over the place. I mean, they've got to look at a few things coming up. I think if they are going to move anybody, as of recently, it's come up that Nylander may go to Colorado. There's a few other things going on there, but I think the aspect is gonna come down to, can Dubas do any better in Pittsburgh? I don't know, because the owner in Pittsburgh is harder on his GMs than a lot of the GMs in the league nowadays around the league. I don't know how he'll handle it. I think he's got a lot of contracts again in Pittsburgh that are 1 year out, and those guys, I don't know if Crosby, Malkin, guys like that, I don't know if they're going to come back and sign another contract. And if they do, it may be a 1-year deal. So you're kind of hands tied on both ends. I think he gave out a lot of contracts here that maybe should have been evaluated to certain players, that overall we just can't. It doesn't allow us to go get free agents to bring guys in here. I don't see Matt Murray coming back. I think they will try and move his contract. As much as I think, had he continued to play, he was playing very well here. Had he not been injured, it could have been a 1-2 punch in the playoffs. But again, we can't continue with the injury prone goalies. They've got to bring Samsonov back and find a proven backup goalie, whoever this GM is going to be. Hopefully it's Trelevin or again Poli from Nashville. I think those are two that focus on the goalie out. You already have your core four. You have a defense if you can sign certain guys, but you're not going to be able to do a whole lot more other than that, honestly.
Yes, thank you so much. Now you kind of covered the core four and the coaching. I'm going to actually speak about the coaching before we do the core four. In my opinion, if when we do sign this new general manager, I think Sheldon Keefe is probably a lame duck, and the whole staff will probably be released and a new coach coming in. Now, what do you guys feel about that, Joe? Let's start with you.
Well, first, I'm going to just acknowledge a couple things. You guys, I totally agree with JT. You hit the nail on the head. Kyle Dubas, he was learning his GM role. And I think whatever role he steps into next, I think he'll be better at it. I think you're right. He honed his chops in Toronto, made some mistakes, and I think he will be better. And Gord, you nailed it with the goaltending. Kyle Dubas was never one to get the goaltending sorted out. It was always piecemealing, and that you have to build from the net out. In my day, in my old school way of thinking, the net comes first. You need a franchise goalie, and they haven't had it. When Dubas started, he had Tavares, Matthews, Marner, Riley, Kadri, Frederick Anderson. That's a pretty good starting base, and we never got better. So you guys really made some really good points. I just wanted to acknowledge that I totally think you hit the nail on the head there. So as far as I think we all know that Sheldon Keefe is as good as gone. There's no point of just doing halfway, getting rid of half the staff. I think it's a house cleaning from top to bottom. The Marlies staff were fired allegedly by Dubas at the season's end, so all those coaches were gone. So I think you're going to see a complete revamp, which, again, in my opinion, let's do it. Rip the Band-Aid off and start fresh. Get some new attitude in there.
Okay. Gord, I see you shaking your head. Yes. In your opinion, who is that coach that we need? And I'm going to ask you the same thing, JT.
Well, I don't think you're wrong there, Joe. I think if they're going to pull the Band-Aid off, the whole coaching staff's got to go. They've got to revamp the whole coaching system. That's what they choose to do. I think right now, until the GM comes in, it's kind of a hit and miss. For if he's trying to play we can still go with this kind of mentality. However, my opinion is pull the damn Band-Aid off. He had a few coaches that he probably could have kept, but they may keep in the organization, but I don't think they'll be back behind the bench. But again, pull the Band-Aid off. In terms of coaches coming in, they're going to have to find somebody that can figure out how to get this core four not to score during the everybody knows they can do that. Max had a 60-goal season. He had a 40-goal season. Nylander had a 40-goal season. We know Marner can pass. The problem is they've got to get this guys unit to play as a unit. And a lot of it is defense, as I said in the last one, the fancy dancing around with the puck. It's a lot of the guys doing it continuously, and they've got to stop this passing back. If you got the ability to go with it, go. The guys are going to be right behind you. if you got guys that you know can fly, Matthews is a good skater. Marner can get up and down the ice like not many guys can. So I think honestly that's what's going to happen. I think they're going to have to bring in a coach that can get these guys to work together. And that's going to be the hard part. Honestly, it is. I mean, depending on who they sign to bring back, they got to get these guys working together. But I think the first thing the coach and the GM has to start with is our goaltending. Stop leaving him out to dry with many of the I'm not going to put fingers at many different players that had that same problem in the playoffs. But again, that's where they got to start, is getting these guys back to playing as a core, playing as a team, stop the individual fancy dancing.
Hey, JT, is there a coach that you want to see come to Toronto? And are you in the same opinion on a new goalie? Now, a new goalie, Gord is talking about Samsonov. I want to throw a name out there that I've actually been speaking to Joe about quite often. What do you think of Connor Hellebuck? Can the Leafs make a trade like that? And what would be going back the other way if we decide to make that trade?
I'm of the opinion your goalie. I understand what Joe's saying, that there's a bad group mentality in our room, but there is a team mentality there, and they kind of hold their own. And I think you have to have somebody who fits the bill from a person standpoint as well. I don't know if Hellebuck does. I don't know the guy personally. I just see how he comes across on media day and whatnot when he's having post game conversations. And Hellebuck's pretty full of himself, and he really likes to put the blame on everyone around him. I'm not a huge fan of him as a goalie. He's a good goalie, solid goalie, but he's a deflector. He likes to deflect. Is that his attitude? So I don't know where to go with goalies. I like Wall. I seriously do like that kid coming up. He showed he had good numbers. He proved his point. I think he just needs another year as a backup, and I think he would be a solid backup. And maybe have somebody like a Hellebuck entering him. Maybe the group there could maybe change him, because the guy, he's a Wall. Or we steal somebody, we trade somebody out and steal somebody else's goalie, and build from there. As for coaches, Eakins is available. I like him. He seemed to have some pretty fun words when he was on the panels. He's the old Ducks coach there. He's done very well for himself. And same with Gallant. He's available now as well. And that guy is he's kind of a hard hitting badass. Look what he did with Vegas. But I don't know. He might be too mean for fragile personalities in the room. So he might break some hearts in there and make some.
Eakins was the coach of the Marlies, wasn't he?
Yes, he was.
Eakins?
Yeah. Did he not win a championship?
Before he went to Anaheim, didn't he take them to the Calder Cup?
Yeah, absolutely did. He did. I like him. I do. I really do like him. I don't think his name gets thrown around there enough, but he's a solid guy. As for Keefe, I've never had this. It's the coaching or the NHL wants to keep Canadians out of the finals. I don't have that mentality. I do believe there's when a ref is on the ice, he doesn't penalize the whole team for the aspects of one player. But being a past coach, I can tell you right now that if you're a total dick on that bench, your team will know it in the officiating. And I don't think the refs like him in the slightest. And I think there's a lot of shit going on there just because of who he is and what he is. And I'm sorry, but we never got a good call ever. And he sat there pouting and throwing his fits and calling media, calling refs out in the media. And he just did everything you're not supposed to do in the old boys club. And I do believe that was to our detriment as the line went down. But I might lose my computer. Looks like my battery.
All right. I think we lost him.
Oh, I think his power shut off there. Oh, Ken, you're muted.
We lost Ken's.
Ken, your mic's muted. Nope.
Can't hear you.
I can hear Joe, Ken, but I can't hear you.
Well, Gordon, you and I can talk till Ken
Well,
gets
Joe,
back on.
yeah, I think you're right there. I think, like I said, I think that we're gonna have to find a goalie. I don't know about Hellebuck.
Okay, I think I'm back on.
There you are.
Hey, welcome back, Ken. Yeah, we could, yeah, I could hear Joe, just not you. I think we lost JT there. We can power.
Roll for JT on the goalie front.
Can you guys hear me?
You're coming in and out, Ken.
I think your internet might be a little wonky there, Ken. So I want a nasty goalie. I'm going to throw some names out. Roberto Luongo.
Can you hear me?
And
Goalie, Roberto
Patrick
Luongo.
Waugh. These were guys that
goalie.
didn't accept losing. I'd love to have everybody nice and Shangri-La getting along. I'm tired of it. I want assholes on the team. Pardon my expression. I want jerks. I want guys that are going to have attitude and swag. And I'll take a confident Connor Hellebuck any day over Samsonov, who had good games. He had not so games and is injury prone.
I'll give you that. However, I will agree with JT. Hellebuck is known as throwing his defenseman under the bus. I will say that, especially in his post-game comments.
Maybe we need that.
I think whoever the coach is might need to take the reins off the goalie. And I mean, Samsonov was. He's a great goalie. Don't get me wrong. But again, you bring in a guy who's outspoken. You have guys in the dressing room that are outspoken. They stated it during the playoff. O'Reilly's got a big mouth and he's not afraid to speak up. Why? Because he's part of the old boys club and he knows you go in, you don't coddle foot these, I want to say, $10 million guy by saying, "Oh, here's a tap on the back. You can do it." And early and truly, I think, like you said, they got to bring in somebody that's got a set between his legs. Somebody who is not a hung me out. I understand the play you were trying to make, and had you made it, it would have been a fantastic play. But you still hung me out to dry. Let's get some. You did see some of them. I don't know what they would say their way. Again, you guys did mention Golo. I think what he did in Vegas is first. The party, buddy. You and Ken decided to dip out, so me and Joe were having a little conversation. Ken dipped out too. And
hey, can you
but
hear
yeah,
me
Joe,
now?
I think you might be right, Joe. I think bringing in somebody like Luongo, I mean, Waugh did in Montreal. Waugh did something in Montreal that no goaltender had ever done. I'm sorry, I'm not a Montreal fan. Never will be. Two, when you had 7 goals scored on you, it's over. You walk over and you stick to the general manager and say, "I will not be back." To the dressing room, get dressed into your civvies, and walk the hell out. That takes cojones. No matter who you are, they hung you out to dry. The coach at the time left him in there. What happened?
The best goalies
he ended up going from there to Colorado and rubbed it in their face when they won the cup. And he did. He's grown up and he realizes that that is not the smartest of ideas in the NFL nowadays. It gets you fined and everything else. But I think they to bring somebody in coach-wise and goaltender-wise that's not afraid to tell these guys outright, "Hey, you know what? Again, I said you hung me out to dry," or the fancy passes, get the puck out of the damn our end and go with it. You have guys that in their zone can dance around. Matthews, Marner, Nylander, the guys sticking ability is at the top of the league. He can do so much. Riley's gonna learn to shoot that damn puck more and stop trying to angle it at the blue line.
We need emotion. We need people that are ticked off. We need attitude. We need some swagger.
And have you heard that Simmons is retiring and he is going into the front office?
Who is?
Wayne
I have
Simmons.
not heard that. No.
That was a report about a week ago that he was going to officially retire, and he wants to stay here in Toronto and help this group to progress.
I could see
But
that.
honestly, I think until they bring in somebody, and I'm not talking fighter, I'm talking about somebody that's got a set between his legs, honestly, coach wise and goaltender wise, that can keep is a good coach, but he doesn't have that go in, fire in the belly, roaring down. I go back to coaches, and you mentioned a couple of old time goaltenders there, Joe. But I take a look at a guy like Pat Burns, Pat Quinn. Would you see any of these guys doing what they're doing now if Burnsy's behind the bench?
Remember
or
the
Pat
wars
Quinn's
in the
behind the
playoffs?
bench?
Yeah.
Because I mean, honestly, I remember when Clark gave McSorley an outright black eye, which he totally deserved. But the coach afterwards said that's not our type of game. It I'm proud of him standing up for what he did, but that's not the kind that need to be organization. They don't need to be an all-out fighting all the time. We got to bring in guys like Achari, not afraid to hit, not afraid to dig, not afraid to take a hit. Again, bring back Luke Shen.
Nice.
Great player. Got to bring him back. I don't care if you bring him back a 2-year entry level contract. The guy's going to sign it. His family wants to be here. He's planning on moving here from what he had said. He wants to come back to Toronto where he started it all. Bring him back. But until you find that goalie. Oh, are you back to regular?
Yeah, I would just want to finish this off before I fully lose my internet service today. I don't know what the hell is going on here, but I just want to go around 1 second, and we're just going to play a little game. Let's play one player that is a free agent from Toronto you want back. One player that is a free agent in the NHL that you would love to see in Toronto, and then we'll just finish it off. Let's start with you, Joe. What is your wish list?
Well, I think number one, I agree totally with Gord. Luke Shen. That's the backbone. I mean, look at how Riley played with him, and it was a new player. Riley did not have a good season. I was not a Morgan Riley fan. He could not defend to save his life. The shots from the point, if he put another shot off someone's shin pads and turned it over, I was going to lose my mind. He does not have a shot from the point. He won't. He never will. Playoffs playing. Shen has my vote. Absolutely. And he took on Maroon and gave him a walloping. Good on him.
Yeah, that was great. That was really
Not
fun.
Lilligren would have done the same thing, but
I agree, Shen. I'm a huge Shen fan. I would love to see Shen come back. Achari, there's a lot of guys I'd like to see come back. And I really, really want to see what Nyes can do. I'm very impressed with that boy's style of play. He's he came up didn't right from high school, but from college hockey, and played a heavy hockey game right away with the big boys. Those guys, I really can't wait to see next year, and I really hope they get Shen. I think he wants to. Yeah. I think he'll sign for next to nothing just to come back.
Yeah, I believe so. Gord, what is your wish list?
And bringing him back, absolutely. Achari, I think, would be fantastic to re-sign. I think they've got to find Achari that they can kind of throw on the first line or the second line. So somebody can score, but is not afraid to get in there. But Bunting just isn't the guy that everybody pests, don't get me wrong, but he's not the guy to get in there and dig. And I go back to Hyman, things like that. A guy that's not afraid to take the hit, but has the ability with his hands. Bunting doesn't have that. Great on the second or third line with Lee, or I think they got to bring somebody in that can get her with up. If Shen's
Awesome.
the ice, who's going to step up? Because there is nobody other than Shen that can step up. They got to find somebody that can throw the body, but still has some to do it. I don't know who off
Corey
off
Perry.
the top of my head. Corey Perry.
No, there's a name, right? My list includes Shannon O'Reilly. Sorry, guys. I was just saying
Think that would be
Shannon
good, Ken?
O'Reilly, and yeah, I don't know. Anyway, before I lose this Foley, boys, I'm gonna thank you for coming on and being part of the Leaf fan panel here today on Ken's Corner. My name's Ken, and I've been here with Joe, Gord, and JT. And thank you so much for joining me on Ken's Corner podcast today, guys. You like what you're seeing? I know it's a little choppy
Have
today,
a good day, guys.
but yeah, please hit that YouTube subscribe. All right, guys. You have a good day.